It is such a privilege to be amongst those who have been asked to remember Dadi Janki.
She has the most amazing eyes, and when you gaze into them, you're seeing beyond the material world.
Each meeting with Dadi Janki left me different, uplifted, challenged and changed.
She was an exceptional person, remarkable.
She was one of the few who really called me her friend.
The most precious gift of all was to be with her, to be in her presence.
मनुष्य कहते हैं हमको शांति चाहिए, तो हम अनुभव से कहती हूँ शांति तब आएंगी जब साइलेंस में जाएंगे, मन अंदर डीप जाएंगे, अंतर जाना माना सब बाहर की बातों को समेट के समा के मैं कौन हूँ अंदर जाओ, अंदर डीप जाओ। जितना अंदर जाएंगे इतना डीप जाओ, जब तक शांति तक, सच्ची शांति तक आत्मा अंदर से नहीं अनुभव किया है तब जल्दी कोई संकल्प की उत्पत्ति मत करो, आदत पड़ गई है।
The first time I met with Dadi was in Oxford when I was invited to a Call of the Time retreat. As a social activist in a country and continent hosting the world's most unequal society, I recall vividly the experience because it was at a time in my life I was filled with so many questions and I had an endless supply of them, but no meaningful answers. We sat in awe and watched this little frail frame come in and powerfully transform the energy in the room merely by her presence. After an engaging talk, she scanned the room for questions, and after answering a few, she looked right at me and said, "Yes." I thought, yeah, right, all this is well and good in the luxury and beauty that surrounded us at the Global Retreat Center. But what of the real world? So I asked Dadi, what is your view on righteous anger? And what's happening in the world? And how do we overcome this injustice unless we fight it, Dadi? She answered, if the seed is poison, then the fruit can only be poison. Even if you nurture, water, care, shield the tree, it can never bear good fruit. When you are the seed of peace, then everything you do contributes to sharing who you are with the world. And when you are anger, hatred, and violence, you cannot be an agent for peace. It was in that instant that a total transformation of who I was began. And all questions seemed to melt away as peace within emerged and continues to grow today.
Dadi Janki was a very important person in my spiritual life. She nurtured my spiritual path and the path of thousands of spiritual seekers. She was the seed of feminine spirituality for planetary transformation. She was the seed that redirected suffering into compassion and happiness. She was a beautiful lotus flower of wisdom and higher consciousness. When I remember her life of Seva, my heart fills up with admiration. The content of her teachings and advice have always been in my mind and heart. For her, the real solutions to the world problems lie in the spiritual dimensions of life. For her, it was very relevant to bring together those of us who are in the field of world service, that we had to develop a deeper connection with our inner spiritual self and with God.
एक सूक्ष्म बड़ी अच्छी विधि है जो कभी भी वो दृढ़ता कभी कम नहीं होती। उसमें मैंने देखा है संकल्प शुद्ध हो, शांत हो, श्रेष्ठ हो, दृढ़ हो। बस पहले संकल्प की जो अंदर जो बीज है ना बड़ा शुद्ध है, शांति वाला है, श्रेष्ठ है, दृढ़ हो गया। उसने कई बार का अनुभव है।
When I think of her, the thing that I remember most is her gaze. When she held me in drishti, and I felt the blessing of being in her presence. And then there was her clarity. I remember on one occasion coming to see her with something that was worrying me, something that I was doing that was worrying me. And after a while listening to me, she looked at me and simply said, "Well, stop doing it." I was shocked. But then I thought, well, yes, that would do it. Stop doing it. And of course, like many others, I thought she could see right into me. And perhaps she could. But it was always with such a loving intent that there was nothing to hide. And there were the gifts, always the gifts. But of course, the most precious gift of all was to be with her, to be in her presence.
It gives me real pleasure to be able to share with you my experience of Dadi Janki. I first met Dadi in Kuala Lumpur, and subsequently I met Dadi up at Mount Abu when I attended the Call of Time retreats. The Call of Time retreats was Dadi's brainchild, and every time it was held, every 2 years up at Mount Abu, Dadi would make sure that she would come up and join us during our discussions there. I remember each time Dadi walked into the room, there would be pin-drop silence, and Dadi took her time as she walked down the aisle to make sure she looked each person in the eye as she offered her drishti or her blessings.
I first met Dadi Janki in 1999. I was in the middle of preparing for a big summit of religious leaders at the United Nations, and someone had suggested that I meet Dadi Janki. So I went with no expectation, just really hoping to invite Dadi to come to this big summit at the United Nations. But I was totally unprepared for what met me. When I arrived there, and we had some dialogue going on, and then this very small woman walks into this room, but bringing with her a tremendous spiritual energy and power. I was completely sort of transfixed when I first was in her presence and felt the energy that she carried with her. And then after the dialogue for that day, I was invited to come up and meet with her personally. And I was sitting very close to her, and she just stared at me, looked deeply into my soul, really, is what she was doing. And I looked deeply back at her, and I was lost in those eyes of hers. She has the most amazing eyes. And when you gaze into them, you're seeing beyond the material world into the spiritual realms. And that was a very powerful experience for me, that first time meeting Dadi and gazing into her eyes and just feeling her presence.
से बोलती हूँ, पहले सैलेंस जाती हूँ, साखियों को देखती हूँ, संसार में मनुष्यों की एनर्जी कितनी उतरती कला में, ये रियलाइज होना चाहिए। चढ़ती कला में कैसे जावे, चढ़ती कला में दो बातों की शक्ति लेके जाती है, एक आत्म शक्ति, दूसरा परमात्मा के कनेक्शन की शक्ति, एनर्जी बनती है।
Whenever she came to New York, I always wanted to try to see her, and I was most moved because whenever I could go see her, she always made time to greet me personally. And then after meeting her a few times when she came to the U.S., she invited me to come to Mount Abu, which I did. I went a few times to Mount Abu to see her, and again, she always made time to meet me personally. And she called me her friend. And that was very, very special to me. In my work, I've met so many spiritual teachers, religious leaders from around the world, and she was one of the few who really called me her friend and treated me as a friend. And so there was no formality when meeting Dadi. Of course, one was conscious that you were in the presence of a very great soul, and it was an intense love that came from her. She emanated this intense love. And she had a great effect on me. In my years, it's not easy to find, through the interfaith work that I've done, rare to find women spiritual teachers of that category who have such a presence and are beloved by so many and have love for the world. What one feels from Dadi is the love that she gives. And she treats everyone as if they are a friend. I knew that I was no different. Everybody was her friend. She was the friend to all, and she was to all a friend.
मेरे से कई पूछते भी है, मैं साखी होकर के देखती भी हूँ, इतनी हिम्मत कहाँ से आई है? कहेंगी भगवान से आई है, पर भगवान में भी मैंने अपन में विश्वास रखा है तो भगवान मदद देता है। इसमें अंदर से सच्ची लगन है ना, तो हिम्मत और मदद दोनों इकट्ठा। पहले हम इतने ही कहते थे हिम्मत बच्चे मदद बाप, अभी देखा है, अनुभव करता कहता है हिम्मत बच्चे की है 100 गुना 1000 गुना मदद बाप की है।
When I looked into the eyes of Dadi Janki, it was like looking into a deep well or an ocean on a beautiful day. I learned to deal with my ego. I learned to be more detached. I learned that to trust. And I started to understand that life would not give me more challenges than I could deal with, that I could handle. And after this, my life took a totally new turn. I'm much more comfortable with myself than I was. I've learned to trust. I'm calmer. I'm more caring. My ego is not as big as it was. I'm more detached. And I think I'm a better person. I know the people around me are happier, the people I love. I owe a lot to Dadi Janki.
On this special occasion, which is a year after Daddy's passing, I have this message for Daddy. Dearest Daddy, everything that you have taught me has been put to good use, and I am now sharing this valuable knowledge with others so that their lives will be peaceful and purposeful as mine has been for so many years now. Thank you, Daddy, for your special love.
Sometimes when I turn my mind to Dadi, I feel her presence right there. I see her smile because she has a most amazing smile. I see the intense love coming from her eyes, and I know that it's a friendship that will last eternally, because that's what friendship is. Friendship, once given, doesn't leave. Friendship is an eternal gift. So that's my love for Dadi, that's my memory of Dadi, and that's how I feel about being in Dadi's presence.